Good morning. I'll call the Public Presentation Committee meeting to order. We'll be conducting this meeting in person and via conference call in accordance with the Municipal Government Act, Section 199. Council chambers is open to members of the public while continuing to use current teleconferencing processes. To join the Public Presentation Committee meeting, the call-in information is in the agenda on our website. We have an agenda before us. Does anybody have any additions or changes?
I'll move the agenda as presented.
Thank you. Any discussion? I'll call the question. All in favor? Motion is carried. We'll start with our 10 a.m. appointment with some presenters from Travel Drumheller. Good morning. And if you can just state your names, please.
Thank you. My name is Lana Phillips. I'm the implementation manager at Travel Drumheller.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Andy Zlomes. I'm the Destination Development Manager for Travel Alberta, responsible for the Canadian Badlands region as well as the Lethbridge to Medicine Hat region.
Thank you. So with that, we'll get started.
Perfect.
So also hoping to join us, but unfortunately could not, Julia Fielding is our Executive Director at the Travel Drumheller. So before we get into what we do at both Travel Alberta and Travel Drumheller, I wanted to talk about some of the context at our different levels of government. So federally, there is a tourism growth strategy, which is looking for a 40% increase in the tourism sector's contribution to Canada's GDP in the next decade. So it's quite an aspirational goal that aligns with the goals here in Alberta. Oops, sorry, I got to scroll down. So here in Alberta, we're looking to get 20 billion in visitor spend by 2035. For context, that's about doubling what we bring into our province at this point. In order to really accomplish that goals, we have to look outside of our wonderful, stable core areas of the mountains and our big cities and really explore our rural destinations and emerging destinations. So we're fortunate that Drumheller and the Canadian Badlands already have some really unique opportunities in our rural areas, and they're considered emerging destination. So how do we capitalize on the potential of rural Alberta and these emerging destinations, including both for the accommodations and the breadth of experience is both what's needed for tourism. And when I speak about tourism, I do just want to remind you that tourism isn't actually a specifically defined industry, but a collections of industries, right? It's accommodations, it's food service and beverage service, it's amusement, it's entertainment. It's quite a broad grouping that really brings visitors to our places and makes, frankly, even great places. So more locally, when we look at these numbers are from 2022, and we're very specific to sort of Drumheller and Starland, but the best numbers we have show that 1 in 6 jobs in that region are driven by tourism. So you can see it has a fairly big local impact. Over $70 million in sales a year, as well as $16 million in wages. So certainly an impact for the communities. So giving context to Travel Drumheller, so we're an organization that's really about telling the stories that bring people to our community. And I think community is really core to what we do because if you have a great foundation of community, not only do you have people that visit, but you want people to stay. I myself, I'm someone who moved to Drumheller as a result of a holiday and started a business there and now work for Travel Drumheller. So that's an opportunity for all communities. But really, Travel Drumheller is a marketing organization. So we work together with partners across Drumheller to celebrate what we offer and bring people in. And people come from all different directions. So ultimately, the mission of Travel Drumheller is to make Drumheller region an iconic Canadian destination. And I will say, as much as I'm obviously calling it Drumheller because that's the core, you'll see our work is advancing out and really what people experience as Drumheller. Folks don't stop at municipal boundaries, you know what I mean? Like to them, it's just, I'm going to this place and here's the things I'm going to enjoy. So that's more the regional context we're working with. But ultimately, we want to make more people to know the great things we already know about Drumheller as a community in an area, in a rural community.
That's why you included Rosebud's picture in there.
Yeah, for sure. That's why we're here talking to you, because actually our destination development plan is all about 5 different municipalities that do make up the Drumheller region to the people who visit. So you'll see a lot of pictures because you guys offer a really unique nugget to the Drumheller region. And many of the folks that come through do come, you know, different pathways from the city. Calgary is a big draw, right? It's come through, so it gives us that opportunity. So in terms of what Travel Drumheller does and why we do it, the ways we do it. So some of the work we do is providing event funding. This is seed funding to help perhaps get new events going and that sort of stuff. And I'd really like to highlight this because this is something we haven't had uptake in Rosebud yet, but certainly we'd like to see. Rosebud already does a lot wonderful on their own, but just so folks know that. And a lot of our hope is that this funding often, if we can encourage more activities outside of the summer. It's not news to any of us that most of our visitors anywhere in our rural communities is typically summer focused. How do we get that to draw out into the fall and into the winter? So this is just a highlight of kind of the work we've been working on. There's lots of stuff we do, but really it's about continuing to market and continuing to build the place intentionally. So things that have happened, like you say, Rosebud is sort of the piece of Wheatland, small central piece that tags onto Drumheller. So there's monthly socials we do, which intends to like bring business community together and tourism vendors together. We've held one of those at the Rosebud Country Inn, which is there in the picture. As well, for the Destination Development Plan, which I'll speak to more in a moment, one of the members of the Community Features Wild Rose, which covers Wheatland, is on that committee, very intentionally. And there are a few Wheatland located businesses that are partners of Travel Drumheller. So I've mentioned what's called the Destination Development Plan. I'm going to speak a bit more to that now because this is really our intentional plan to help the province hit those numbers. And really it's on all of us. As much as I'm here from Travel Drumheller and the plan is sort of initiated by Travel Drumheller and Travel Alberta, it will be a cooperative effort from all levels of government, community, tourism operators, everyone to actually leverage. And that's very intentional for us because really it's grounded great community, makes great places for people to visit. And so how do we leverage that? And more cooperation will make it easier because we know we all have there's only so much time in the day and all of that stuff, right? How do we work together to get the best out of the efforts we put in? So this kind of blob here is the Destination Development Plan area. And as I mentioned, it covers a number of different municipalities. So the whole of the town of Drumheller is within here, but it includes Wheatland, essentially the portion within Rosebud, because that's a key. Visitors feel that that's part of the Drumheller experience when they're in the valley. It includes parts of Knee Hill County, parts of Starland County, and as well, when we go towards Dorothy, a bit of special area too. So it's 5 different sort of local level governments that support the role. And we will need accommodation and experiences throughout the valley and this region to really meet the goals. So the plan itself, it too, of course, has a vision. And really, again, it's reframing a few things. We want to be an iconic year-round destination grounded in community. So in this vision, to me, there's 3 key things. 1, the year-round. In order for businesses to thrive and succeed, they do need income level year-round. So how do we spread that seasonality out? An iconic destination. So part of that's raising the bar. We have the Royal Trail Museum we know is like the gem and the jewel, but we have the other, quite remarkable things like the Badlands Amp and Rosebud. Those are, how do we get more things of that caliber and class that are really exceptional? Because we have a lot of great supporting services, but how do we sort of get those remarkable and iconic services and experiences? And grounded in community. As you can appreciate, when we look at the mountains, sometimes some fear can be evoked with what more tourism looks like. But if we're intentional about it being community driven, and we're really just making a great community people want to visit, that can lead to different outcomes while still having a very successful tourism industry. So obviously it is looking at the full components of economy, social for the region to really make it a key destination. And destination more than it already is, because we do know it is a popular destination in Alberta. So in terms of the plan itself, it was created with some consultants and elaborate community engagement in sort of late 2022, early 2023, and completed in March 2023, similar to many development zones that actually exist across the province. In sort of late fall, a steering committee was formed and an implementation manager was hired. That's me. So my sole job, and I'm unique in the province, and Andy can correct me, we are the only development zone that has intentionally hired someone to help implement the plan, very specifically for that role. And my background is in urban planning and community planning. That's my background. So the steering committee, I won't be speak to them. We've been very intentional about not everybody on the steering committee is necessarily in tourism. We got a mix of geographies. So we have the Wheatland person from Community Futures. We have someone from Needle Hill. We have someone from Starland. And then the sort of representatives that are more community members. We do have one tourism operator, but the other is just sort of like general citizen who cares about the community. And then we have someone from the bank to give some financial perspective. So we're very intentional of breadth in that committee. So we did hold an information session in late 2023 for the public. We distributed over 3,000 postcards across the region to encourage folks to come and learn more about the plan. So the plan itself is dense. You're welcome to read it. I encourage you, if you just want context, the first 40 pages of the plan, the last 40 pages, the appendix, really pages 21 to 45 are the meaty bits. But if you walk away with nothing, really the plan is about that seasonality component. How do we go beyond the summer? With that, how do we get more experiences and accommodations of a certain caliber outside of that? And then we have to think big. Really, the success of all of this and the profitability of all of it is all dependent on our willingness to think outside the box and create these amazing experiences, which is easier said than done. It's not always easy to go outside of what you know. But those are the core things we want to focus on. So what does that look like right now, though? So like I say, the plan is a bit dense. Really, there's about 20 initiatives under 3 pillars: development or destination leadership, destination development, destination promotion. Travel Drumheller is involved in all of them in some way. The focus obviously for as a marketing organization is promotion, but we're supporting those other pillars. What it actually looks like now is with the committee, we've determined 6 specific actions, so tangible things that we can do within the next 6 months. So the 6 are listed there, and at the end of the presentations, there's a bit more detail, so if you want to sit and marinate on those. But ultimately, these ones are either quickly impactful to the community, building foundational information we need to grow, so the travel survey and asset inventory, which include the Rosebud region, Rosebud area, are really just that we need foundation to be able to measure our success, know what we have, build itineraries. Fall and winter idea generation, pretty clear, we need to help seasonality. And then the importance of building Indigenous relationships and just revisiting our visitor center are sort of the core things we're working on. So that's functionally my job now, is to continue to work with the community to get information and move these forward and continue to support the work long term. I should say the plan itself, it's not like a 2-year plan, it's like a decade-long plan, right? So you got to start somewhere. We're starting with tangible things. So from a Wheatland perspective, obviously, information sharing is huge and cooperation. So anything you can do to support us and information is helpful. You're always welcome to reach out and ask questions of us, learn more about what we're doing. I think a really key part too is there's so much great happening. And sometimes we get so lost in like the doing, we forget to celebrate. So opportunities you have where to help us celebrate or acknowledge something that we maybe don't know about. And just continue to work through. And I know Wheatland, Rosebud's like a teeny little piece way up central. So it might not feel like it applies to everything, but I think you've got this really amazing nugget. And how do we nurse that nugget and work cooperatively? So I think that's all I have to say. I don't know if Andy has any key provincial things you might like to add, and then we're welcome to open to questions.
You may wonder why I'm here today, and and the reason is that I'm always here to support our destination marketing organizations and our management organizations across the province. Travel Drumheller's plan really overlays the provincial plan in the Canadian Badlands, and we did our own destination development plan for the Badlands, which encompasses a little bit more of Wheatland County, all the way down into Brooks, over to Dinosaur Provincial Park and kind of up into the Drumheller region. But we're really fortunate in this part of the Canadian Badlands to have an organization dedicated to tourism and tourism leadership. And that's something that, you know, is really key to us being able to double tourism revenues in the province by 2035. I'm also here to answer any questions that you may have from a provincial standpoint, and just to support Lana and Travel Drumheller today too. Thank you.
Thank you. You timed that perfectly. You were right at the 15-minute mark for your presentation.
And I'm just going to put the more detailed slide up, not that you can read it, but at least so the folks in the audience, you know, if you want to look at it later, you can check it out.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And the presentation is part of our public presentation agenda, which is available on our website as well. So if people need to enlarge it a little bit. Any questions regarding the presentation? Councillor Kester.
Yeah, talking about Rosebud, I would say they're genuinely happy to be part of Wheatland County. You look on the Wheatland County website, I don't have it up right now, but it has all our hamlets listed. They were curious, and now I see with the bigger area with Drumheller, if you have any initiatives to enhance their website. Like, it doesn't do much good to, we could have a Rosebud website, but they want the presence in Wheatland County too. But if you could hook it up to the rest of the Drumheller, that egg shape, and give people a glimpse of what they could see if they come to this area.
Yeah, that's a great question. So Travel Drumheller does have a website that it's covers more of the region. And so, for example, right now, like all the Rosebud Theatre events are listed on the Travel Drumheller website. It's intended to be the conduit. As well, we actually do a printed exploration guide as well that sort of navigates folks throughout the space. So there are some existing sort of digital ways that we try to leverage and highlight Rosebud as part of that area, and that it is something that people can visit when they come in.
To be any way we could link that to the county website, or?
I think best to, I'm sure, actually, I do think you already have a connection into that Travel Drumheller website from the county. And I think Jamie's going to speak later about his website. So maybe when he presents, he can speak to that point. Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, and I think the biggest thing to understand is how visitors and potential travelers are finding places like Rosebud. And is it through county websites or is it through direct to partner? And you really have to understand kind of traveler intentions and the path to purchase. And really, once you do that, then it's whether or not a website works for them, or if you should be driving it to something like the Rosebud Theatre, who is kind of the main player in the region too, right? So it's really how you want a traveler or a potential visitor to kind of access those kind of things too. Yeah.
They've been saying the real growth, the theater part is full.
Yep.
And they're not adding more plays, so it's not really growing.
Yep.
But the tourist traffic in town is growing,
Mm-hmm.
and a lot of them just want the peace and quiet. It just
resident
wander around
sentiment.
this-
Yeah. Oh yeah, definitely. Resident sentiment's a huge part of some of the work that we're doing. We're consistently, and Travel Drumheller too, doing resident sentiment surveys. So at least once a year to really understand the potential in the regions, but also understand whether or not the residents, enjoy having an influx of visitors and understand the potential of that, right? So we're always trying to navigate that resident sentiment potential in tourism, because lots of people don't want to be overcrowded or over tourism too, right? Yeah.
Councillor Bigger and then Councillor Lowerson.
I find that Rosebud is on the way. If there was some way that maybe signage could be through the province, you have to hire your highway signs and pay for them. If there was some kind of rebate for tourism attractions, scenic tours, it's a beautiful drive, and to kind of lure them towards the Rosebud highways instead of 24 or 21 up to number 9. It's a nicer drive if the signage could be a little bit more affordable. Could maybe push for that.
Definitely. And I know that you've worked on a little bit of signage even from the Dinosaur Trail perspective too. It's something that, I think signage across the province is in need of. I even went out and saw Ryan at Rocking R and his signage too, right? So, really trying to make sure that we're able to connect those pieces, because Google's great, but when Google doesn't work or something's there, you really want to know where you're coming up to those potential kind of tourism assets for sure.
Councillor Larson.
So this question's primarily for you. I think that well, you didn't talk much, so we got to pick. on
Yeah,
you.
yeah, you pick on me. I'm good.
So I think there's an opportunity for the province to make this into not a, like, don't make, say, Drumheller a destination, make it a, like, if the province said, listen, if you want to come and spend 2 weeks in Southeast Alberta, you know, you've got Dinosaur Provincial Park, there's John Ware's cabin there, but that stuff is linked directly with the stuff that they'll see in Drumheller. So they could make a tour, they could go through Dallam, for example, and see this church that got dropped out of Denmark into the prairie, head over to Rosebud or wherever. But I think that you could partner with, you know, Travel Drumheller and some of the other ones to try and, you know, make it so people see it as a place to come for an extended period of time, as opposed to, oh, well, we'll go to the Trail Museum for the day, and if we get time, we'll go see the hoodoos kind of thing.
Yeah, you're not wrong. And that's where I really think that we had to start somewhere when we started to work through 10 different tourism development zones in the province. And we were really looking at first the concentration of experiences. And as I had mentioned earlier, leadership from the local level when it comes to tourism. And that's where we were lucky that, you know, starting with Drumheller, but the Canadian Badlands is such an amazing area, right? The landscapes, through our kind of process of working through destination development, arts and culture really started to bubble up as well. So really starting to, you know, put those itinerary pieces together so that people could spend 2 days in Dinosaur Provincial Park. They could spend 2 days in Wheatland County, whether it's, you know, out at Rocking R or into Rosebud. They can spend another 2 days kind of even going up into the Trochu region and stuff too, right? We're starting to see that concentration of experiences. And this is one of the only areas that we're seeing new tourism operators come in and want to start tourism related businesses, as opposed to, you know, working in a bigger city where you're like, well, it's the locals that are probably going to sustain those businesses. We're seeing a lot in this region of new tourism businesses bubbling up and starting to, you know, start new business, which is really exciting too.
And you could link the operators might not like you that well, but you could also link the Finnegan and Blariot ferries with this, because how many places can you actually cross a river on a ferry anymore? And then my final thing is, I see on the one page that it's, you know, your at one ask is share information that impacts tourism in the region. Is there another ask here, or?
Right now, we're just asking for cooperation and support in that
Okay.
sense. If you choose to support us in another way, we will happily oblige.
You're looking for the money ask. No, we're not there for.
We're not here for a money ask.
Well, see, usually there's a money ask. That's
No,
why.
we're here just because we think it's really impactful, even though, like I say, Rosebud Smart Park, like you're hitting the nail on the head with, we need people to move throughout our communities across Alberta, and how do we do that? And the only way will be through cooperation and collaboration, and there's just too much for us all to know unless we tell each other stuff.
Councillor Baker.
Add one more thing, your 10 development regions, can we have a map of that?
Yep. So I can send you the link to industry.travelalberta.com, which would have all of the regions, as well as all the development plans, the discovery reports for every single region. So you'd be able to look at all of them. Yeah.
Yeah, and if you're interested just specifically on the destination Drumheller one, we do have a page on the traveldrumheller.com website specific to this plan. So it highlights those actions up there, the plan area, and some of the other stuff I've spoken to today.
Awesome, good job. Thank you for, you're doing good work.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Good discussion, and we definitely appreciate the presentation. And I think as local leaders, we certainly consider ourselves as ambassadors for this region. And so we look forward to partnering and highlighting the work that you're doing in the region. I think it's really important too to counter some of the sort of misinformation sometimes that's presented around rural Alberta and some of our sectors. And there's ways that we can do that through tourism and attracting people here and actually telling our story of what we're doing in rural Alberta and all of the importance of energy security and food security and how we contribute to that. And we do have some cultural gems. Rosebud is absolutely an incredible community, and certainly an important part of that tourism strategy for the Drumheller region. So I think you have our commitment to collaborate in any way that we can, and certainly appreciate the work that you and the province are doing to increase tourism. Certainly appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
We'll move to agenda item 2.12. We have representatives from the Lakes and Muirfield Homeowners Association and Lyalta Community Club. Good morning and welcome. I should remind too, we have 15 minutes for each presentation. The committee can extend that by resolution if there's a requirement for more time to present. And if you can just introduce yourself.
Thank you for your time today. Quick introduction. I'm Tom Morris, president of the Lakes of Muirfield. With me today is Mike Ebert, our secretary and my co-chair on the Amenities and Recreation Committee. Scott Kolowski is a longtime Muirfield resident and member of both the Lakes of Muirfield and Lyalta Community Club boards. And on behalf of the Community Club Board itself, we have Heather Dougal, John Kearney, and the driving force of the center for so many years, Bev Sobiecki. We'll start with our mission statement. Lyalta area residents are in dire need of a modern recreational facility where our families and children can relax, play sports, exercise, and get together in a clean, safe, and fun environment. With the addition of more family-friendly amenities, the near perfect place to do this is the existing Lyalta Community Center and its grounds. Our admittedly ambitious amenities wish list is based on a Muirfield survey and the County Open Space, Recreation and Culture Survey, both completed in 2021. The Muirfield survey asked our residents what you would like to see in terms of amenities, while the county's was actually asking what amenities are used now. The top 4 county amenities used were open spaces and parks, walking paths, community halls, and sports fields, while our surveys requested what you see on the screen. Now, the existing facility and grounds is just under 10 acres. That includes the hall, parking, a couple of outbuildings, one with concession kitchen, 2 baseball diamonds, a tot lot that needs a little bit of upgrading, small barbecue area, and weekend unserviced campsites. We do not wish to remove any of those existing amenities, so what we need will not fit. And there are other challenges as well. We looked at what is required to take advantage of this site, and simply we need more land. And the current infrastructure in terms of water and power desperately needs upgrading. On our behalf, our councillor Scott Clausen spoke to the Huntleys who own the adjacent land, and they have agreed to sell 7.5 acres. This provides much needed additional parking, campground access on the east side of the current property, which will relieve bottlenecks they're experiencing now during the busier summer months, and the important room for more amenities. Oops, excuse me. There we are. For those of you who haven't been out here in a while, we're about 10 kilometers north of the Trans-Canada, about halfway between Strathmore and Chestermere. North and south is Range Road 264, east and west is Township Road 252. I don't know if you can see this. There we are. Okay, this is the existing LCC facility now and the 7.5 acres that we wish to add. To the east is the Lakes of Muirfield and Muirfield Lakes Golf Course. South of that is the hamlet of Lyalta. And running through the entire community is the Western Irrigation District Canal, which comes through here. And we are currently working with the county for a walking, bike, and running path that will terminate at this facility, at the LCC. And they'll go through the entire community and end up there. Just to give you a little bit better idea of what we have planned, the blocked-in amenities, of course, are not to scale. It's just a rough draft. Last year, we hired an urban design consultant that will build upon this foundation. First of all, you'll note that we're not using the entire 7.5 acres to start, which will allow us to future-proof this project. Quick overview of what we're doing. This land here is currently owned by the Western Irrigation District and has a 20-degree grade on it. It would require a great deal of dirt being moved in order to make it any kind of level playing surface. So our idea is that we're negotiating with the WID to take over this land, since they have all kinds of access to get to the canal to do any kind of maintenance they need. And we'll fence it and put some gates up, put some park bench, and our pup refuse stations that we use throughout our community, and hand that over to our four-legged friends so that they can use it as an off-leash dog park. Now, currently, this is the only access to the facility now. These are the campsites. These are the 2 ball diamonds. This is your community center with limited parking. Our plan is to build a gravel road with, and then a parking lot to take pressure off, because this area becomes overflow parking and you can't get your RV out of these campsites on a busier weekend. And then a soccer field. And this is where we feel the Four Seasons Sport Park would be fine, because this is where the water source is. So that's sort of an idea of what we're looking at. We're approaching this in 2 phases. As mentioned, we've hired an urban design company called NAC Design. They are an urban and recreational planner with offices in Calgary. They'll improve on our rudimentary efforts on the previous slide once we have secured the land. They have worked on projects of this type with communities right across Canada, and we're looking forward to taking advantage of their expertise. Phase 1, we hope to complete by the end of 2024. Phase 2 by mid-2026. Now, look at this in a little bit more detail. This is the critical part of Phase 1. The land purchase predicates everything. We hope to close the sale shortly. We're getting a very good deal on the land, $6,000 an acre. We've built in some closing costs on top of that. The rezoning, we still have to firm up in terms of what kind of costs are going to be there. The estimate on the infrastructure upgrade is still an eyeball estimate, and there's additional areas that we'll have to work on. The water is immediately less critical, but if we want to have ice next winter, a larger cistern and perhaps deeper well may be required. Prior testing has shown pH balances are high and salty water does not freeze very well. We hope to coordinate with the county to take advantage of operations expertise support on the infrastructure wherever possible, so we can expedite the start of this project. The balance of Phase 1 and budgets. As mentioned, we are currently working with the WID and securing the use of the land in the southwest corner near Range Road 264 for a dog park. And while the security monitoring may be a bit premature for the community club, the Lakes of Muirfield is currently sourcing a camera system to replace our nearing end-of-life front gate. As we have agreed with the county, once that gate dies, we will not be replacing or repairing it, and our residents need a viable, secure, and safe alternative to it. So if it makes more sense and it's more economical to do both sites at the same time, we'll discuss that with the community club when the timing is appropriate. Next year and into 2026, we are following a less aggressive timeline in Phase 2. The support on the operational side, we hope the county will extend throughout the project. We added NAC costs here as their payments will follow each project's completion. For example, the storage warm-up hut, it's going to be a simple 2-car garage with an insulated heated section so you can put your skates on or take them off without freezing your fingers off, or allow you some, kids to warm up between shinny games and things of that nature. And we need some storage for some decorations and some of the equipment that we have now in some residence garages. What we have budgeted is a healthy sum, but the returns on this investment for the Lyalta Community Club in the entire Lyalta area are worth it. The campsites are often full, and response to the ball diamonds is phenomenal. Comes from far and wide, but only for a few summer weekends and typically from an older demographic. Our local families desperately need a good, strong, year-round recreational events area to help our community become a community. And what better place than an established facility that offers amenities enjoyed now with weddings, dances, kids, parties, but with room for so much more. A vibrant recreation area guarantees membership and future growth by attracting more and younger families, and with that, commercial interest naturally follows. The Lyalta Community Club is a real gem with a very strong foundation to build upon. That's why the Lakes of Muirfield purchases an annual membership for each household in the Lakes of Muirfield and contributes towards the operational costs. In return, the community club is managing our pending RV lot that the county operations crew did such a wonderful job at the end of 2023 getting ready for us. So we are both committed to our growing partnership and believe expanded amenities will provide area families exactly what was asked for in our Muirfield survey and what is most used now according to the county surveys. We've been very fortunate with the cooperation we have received from Wheatland County at both council and admin levels. It's required patience from time to time on both sides of the table, but through hard work and open dialogue, we have developed a strong collaborative approach, and we look forward to building on that relationship. Because both boards are making a huge commitment. And that commitment is beyond applying for every municipal, provincial, federal, and corporate grant we can to augment our own funds. We are prepared to spend a lot of our time and our effort managing this project. We understand beyond a lot or two for playgrounds, there are no free acres in Lakes of Muirfield. And this solution makes the most sense for Muirfield, Wheatland County, and all Lyalta area families. Having said that, while we are prepared to be out of pocket, it will not be exclusive to Muirfield residents, so it's only fair we have, wherever possible, Wheatland County's financial and operations support on this exciting endeavor. Why? It's basically, it's a no-brainer. The Lyalta Community Club and Lakes of Muirfield feel our time, our effort, and funds are well worth it and don't mind sharing with every resident of the surrounding area. This is a huge win for us. The county has an excellent opportunity to realize a huge return on unsold land that will only increase in value and provide ongoing tax revenue. But more importantly, this will create a template on how to accomplish great things by working together going forward. Thank you. Are there any questions?
Thank you very much for the presentation. Any questions? Deputy Reeve Clausen.
No question, just comment. Great presentation, and you know, I've been heavily involved in this as it's my division. So I really want people to understand that this is from what the residents want and what we can work together with to accomplish something. I really like that it's utilizing the existing hall site because it's been difficult to keep, as we all know in our communities, keep these halls up and running. It needs that community support, and this is going to breathe new life into that. Also, there is another development on the books in the area that has been stalled out for us quite some time, but this would also support that as well. So, and so I really look forward to a future ask. And I really like that the timeline is stretched out here so we fully understand, but I really want to hear from my colleagues what they think. So thanks again.
Very, very good presentation. And what I take away from this is different than anything else we have in the county, in the fact that we are the developer of this. And as a developer, we owe the residents a certain standard of amenities. And if we can keep these amenities being in the hands of the people in the area so that we're not hiring county employees to take care of this stuff, you have my undying support. So thank you very much for the presentation.
Thank you very much.
I have a quick question, actually. Sorry. I'm just curious if you have contemplated, it's a bit early in the game maybe, but looking for corporate sponsorship as well. I think the area might get built out due to large development should be coming, and just curious if that's been on your mind.
Oh, absolutely.
Mm.
If you can just hit the button on that microphone. They go off.
Go off. There
Thank
go.
you.
Oh, okay. Yeah, definitely. We are looking at just about every avenue to augment, the funds that we've set aside. And, we know that there is, we've actually investigated in a couple of areas. So we've got a few ideas, but we're always looking for more. So if anybody has any corporate ideas, we're definitely open to them. But yeah, we wouldn't mind putting put a name on the rink if you want. What the heck? But okay, great.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Councillor Larson.
Just a comment to this. I understand why you want all this stuff, but you need to understand that you're one of many hamlets that are in this county. And if we do something for you, then we have set precedent that we might have to do for all the hamlets. And I'm not sure we, can necessarily afford to do that. Many other communities like Dallam, for example, wanted a new playground and they raised their own funds for that. And it was a pretty significant amount of money for a very tiny area. So you have good ideas, but I have to look at the benefit countywide when I'm deciding on this.
Absolutely. I totally understand where you're coming from and appreciate that we are not the only community out there. At the same time, it's a bit of an interesting situation when you consider that the county is the development authority for the Lakes of Muirfield, and also is actually a partner with the Lakes of Muirfield in terms of the ownership of the land and the ability to realize even better returns on that investment. So from that standpoint, totally understand. And, we understand we're not the only ones. We're throwing an awful lot of money out of our own pocket here. All we're looking for is where that support is. And a lot of the support we're looking from the county actually is where the expertise is in terms of pushing dirt around, leveling it, and using all the gravel that's available. So from that standpoint, we're hoping that support comes. As I mentioned, we are looking for, to take advantage of every grant we can, and and corporate as well. So this is something that we're not coming to you saying cross our palms with silver. We're saying, be our partner here and work with us, and that's all we're looking for. Fair enough?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Any other questions regarding the presentation? I want to thank you for the presentation. The community spirit is impressive, and the level of collaboration between the Lyelta Association and longstanding residents in the community and the more relatively new community of Muirfield, to see that coordination and collaboration I really like to see that. I like that your plan is based on resident input and identified needs by the community itself, and that you're using that to form your plan. And yeah, it's impressive. And there certainly are some nuances with Lyelta and Lakes of Muirfield development and just the history of it and the current state. And it's a tremendous opportunity that we have. Another thing that I just keep in mind when we're looking at our hamlets and our more densely populated areas is it's a way to mitigate fragmentation of our agricultural land too. If we can have attractive communities all throughout the county, including all of our hamlets, it can help mitigate that. So certainly appreciate all of the community's work on this and look forward to seeing where things go in the future. We don't make decisions in this committee, but we can take this information back and council consider any future sort of more specific asks. I know you'll work with your area councillor and with our administration to bring things forward. So thank you very much.
Fantastic. Thank you.
And with that, just a procedural note, I neglected to call for a motion to accept our first presentation as information. So if we could do that first.
Also move.
Thank you, Councillor Bigger. Any questions or discussion? I'll call the question. All in favor? Motion is carried. And a motion to accept this presentation as information.
So moved.
Thank you, Deputy Reeve Clausen. Any discussion? All in favor? Motion is carried. Okay, we've had a request just for a short break. Let's recess for 5 minutes and reconvene. Good morning. We're going to call the meeting back to order. If I can just ask those in the gallery just to have a seat, please. We're going to move to agenda item 2.13. Representatives from Shasta Seniors Living. Good morning, and if you can just introduce yourself, please. Oh, yes, just the button on the bottom. Thank you.
Yes, good morning. Thanks for the opportunity to tell you what we've been up to the last 3 years and what we intend to do for the next 2. My name is Doug Murphy, and I'm the president of Shasta Seniors Living, and that's my day job. When Betty Ann and I lived here for 14 years in Strathmore, most people knew me as a hockey coach and one of the founders of the Wheatland Kings junior hockey team. In September, just give you some background on the last few years. In September 2020, Alberta Health Services put out a request for expressions of interest and qualification for long-term care, designated supportive living, community hospice, and specialty beds throughout the province. They identified 31 locations along with the care requirements and whether the care needs in those locations were urgent or a priority. In total, in the 31 locations, they identified over 5,700 beds that were required in the system, which would have had a $2 billion impact on infrastructure with no grants available. So this is all money that people responding would have to come up with on their own. Our focus was primarily on larger locations because of some of the changing demographics in rural areas. And we were looking more at the ones that had an urgent need, except Strathmore. And Strathmore was close to my heart, and we wanted to pursue that. We submitted 6 proposals on different locations in October of 2020, and in July of 2021, we were notified we were shortlisted on 3 of the locations, including Strathmore. We began meetings with Alberta Health Services and went through a rigorous due diligence process. to demonstrate that we have the background, the experience, the expertise, as well as the financial ability to successfully deliver the projects that we had made applications for. In June 2022, like all other organizations that had applied, we were formally notified which of our submissions we were unsuccessful on. And AHS withdrew one of the projects that we had been successful on because their capacity requirements didn't pan out to be what they had thought they would. In September 2022, we were notified that we were the successful candidate to develop and operate care community in Strathmore, and we've been busily working away at it since then. In October, Shasta received a commitment letter from Alberta Health Services to provide funding for 54 long-term care spaces, 36 designated supportive living spaces, and 6 hospice spaces. You should know that all of the care requirements of the residents in this building will be covered by Alberta Health Services funding, and the monthly accommodation fees, as they are throughout the province, are set by the government. The hours of care that are provided are very prescriptive in our funding and are very closely monitored by Alberta Health Services on a quarterly basis. And if you don't provide the hours of care, they will claw back your funding. We are currently negotiating the purchase of 3¼ acres from Alberta Health Services on the Strathmore Hospital and Health Center land. And we will begin work on subdivision and the land due diligence that we require later this week. And let me take you through the project. Strathmore is the 4th of what we call our H or butterfly buildings. And when we see it from above, you'll see why we call it that. They were designed to be very efficient for both residents and staff and have won international design awards. We were starting construction in Airdrie just as COVID arrived, and during the pause where everybody was in lockdown, our architect went back and redesigned the mechanical system so that we're able to manage outbreaks, COVID, influenza, anything like that, and contain it to a small portion of the building. The Strathmore building will be 3 stories. It's 87,520 square feet, including an 8,000 square foot hospice building. Our architects did a study of some of the best hospice designs from around the world and have come up with a very friendly, inviting building that we estimate will cost $3 million, including the land, building, and furniture and equipment. We have a development set of drawings prepared. And through the subdivision process, we'll submit that to the town of Strathmore, followed by building permit drawings that will come shortly thereafter. At the moment, we're getting our equity financing in place and are in an ongoing negotiation with Alberta Health Services for a 20-year master services agreement to operate the facility. Total cost of the 96-unit project, including purchase of the land, construction, furniture, and equipment, is approximately $36.5 million. None of that is coming from taxpayers. We will employ 75 to 80 full-time people, and we'll provide 187,000 hours of care per year. Our payroll will be something over $5.8 million. And we plan to begin construction in July, if everything goes well. So our project timeline, we're in the land acquisition and pre-construction phase right now. We are working with general contractors and refining pricing. And then, as I say, hope to start construction in July this year. We think we can shorten the construction period to 18 months, but in our timelines, we show 2 years. We also hope to be bringing the first residents into the building the first part of 2026. And it will then take us approximately a year to fill the building if it goes like the last few buildings we've done. And then we will refinance it and stop paying high interest rates. So just a little summary here on what I just spoke of. The overview of the property. You can see the hospital and health center, their buildings, and we are situated in the northeast corner. Much of that was through AHS's request to make sure the flight path to the helipad remains open. Last time I drove by there, there's no way you can miss it. So the building itself, come on. It is an H building. 2 of the wings are a little shorter. In this building, we have a single-story hospice that is attached to the building, but functionally separate, has separate entrance, but is connected. So should there be emergencies or meals and things can go back and forth from the main building into the hospice. Lots of parking, very well treed. 2 courtyards in the main building. One is a secured courtyard for people with memory care needs. The other is open and people can go out, use it, and walk out into the community. Similarly, the hospice, the rooms have access to small patios and some walking trails in a nicely treed area. And this is what we think it will look like in the end. You can see the main building kind of in the forefront, and to the left, the single-story building is the hospice building. The building, as I said, is 3 stories. The first story, the darker blue, is the hospice. The light blue is an 18-unit memory care unit. There's a central core that has elevator, some meeting space, living room type space. And then the gray area to the right is administration, commercial kitchen, mechanical, electrical buildings, and shipping and receiving. To the right on the main, or to the left on the main floor is activities areas, exercise rooms, gardening rooms, all sorts of other multi-purpose use for the residents. The second floor is two cottages of 18 units of long-term care. Again, the center core in the residential side, there's a living room, a dining room, and that is the same on both sides of the building. So each cottage has its own living room, dining room, recreation space, and servery. At the ends of the corridors, there are very well-lit lounges, which for someone with a propensity to wander, it serves to turn them back around. And
Mr. Murphy, I'm just going to ask you to pause just for a moment.
sure.
We've hit the 15 minutes allotted for the
Okay.
presentation. There is a provision within our committee bylaw to extend that by committee resolution. So I'll ask the committee for their wishes.
I'll move that the committee allow Mr. Murphy to speak
For an extended period of
for an
time.
extended period of time. Thank you.
Any questions or discussion? I'll call the question. All in favor? Motion is carried. Please proceed.
Okay.
Just
Sorry.
our
lost track
public
of time.
presentation committee is relatively new, and so we're still just learning or implementing the procedures is relatively new. So thank you.
I'll speed it up. Third floor has a supportive living 4 cottage and another 18-unit long-term care cottage. Resident rooms are in most instances 365 square feet, which is a requirement of Alberta Health Services. We also have one bariatric unit, and bariatric units are designed for individuals who are 350 to 1,000 pounds or more. The hospice unit, it has a private patient room, a private patient washroom, and a little family area so that people can visit and kind of come and go. We're doing some redesign on this and hope to improve it as we go. Gonna zip through this stuff. I've been at this over 30 years. In that time, I've developed 36 different buildings across Western Canada. We used to operate as well, but that's where the hard work is, and there's people better qualified to do it. Again, a bit about me, 30 years of doing this. We've built a very good team to develop this facility. Our architect, Todd Vauchel, is based in Fort Saskatchewan. We met about 6 years ago, had him rationalize some of the building space, and managed to turn some projects that weren't financially viable into viable projects by dropping 20,000 square feet off of the buildings without affecting anything resident related. A little more about Todd. Our project, come on. Sorry. Yeah, thank you. So Sean worked for me for 4 years. He's an excellent project manager, development manager. We kind of parted ways when he moved to BC, but we've reunited, and he will be looking after the Strathmore project. And I'm not moving again. Our recent projects in Airdrie, we have a 126 unit 4-story building that we opened in May of 2022. It runs at 99 to 100% occupancy and has since it initially filled. In the far west part of Edmonton, we have a 5-story, 162 unit building, which also runs 99 to 100% full regularly. We have another 4-story, 126 unit building in Medicine Hat. It opened in June and has been very, very slow to fill. I think again, somebody didn't know what the need was. Fort Saskatchewan, 126 unit 4-story building again. We opened in October 2023. When I put this together, we were at 45% occupancy. We're now up to 55% and expect to be full by mid-April. And that's it.
Thank you for the presentation. I'll open the floor to questions. Councillor Lawerson, and then Councillor Laprise.
I have a number of questions for you. So I looked through the presentation. It looks like your competition to like a facility such as Aged Care Sagewood, except maybe for the little hospice part, and you're funded by AHS, and you're building it in the town of Strathmore. And I didn't really see an ask in there. So What's the purpose of your presentation to us then?
Inform.
Okay, was that your idea?
Yes.
Okay.
We offered to do a similar presentation.
Gotcha.
to,
Okay. So, but you're a for-profit company then, right?
Yes.
Yes. And when was the last time you updated your costs? Because I'm on the building committee for a lodge here, and your costs seem to be like almost an order of magnitude on the low side, given today's costs. So when was the last time you updated your estimated costs for the hospice and the facility?
Last week.
Last week. Really? Interesting. Now, is that including the funding you get from AHS or not including?
We get no funding on the capital side. That's all our own money.
And what do you, like, you know that AHS is in a bit of turmoil right now.
Yes.
And so what's your plan if, like, have you made provisions in case the government of Alberta does decide to go ahead with continuing care organizations actually by the end of May this year, and the AHS will be just one of many vendors that might or might not. Like, I see that you don't, nothing's firm here. You've got a letter of commitment, but you don't have the land yet. Like, there's a number of steps that you need to do, and I understand that because we've gone through the same thing. But do you have a provisional plan for when AHS gets restructured?
I don't, because I don't know how they're going to be restructured.
Okay.
I know I have commitments from them for funding, and
Oh, but you just said you don't get funding from them.
I have
For
operational
operating.
funding.
Oh, for operational funding. Okay. And are they funding the hospice beds as well?
Yes.
Thanks.
Councillor Laprise and then Deputy Rick Clausen.
I was just curious if you have hospice rooms in other of your facilities to date. Have you done that before?
I personally haven't. Operations people have. My wife, when she was looking after operations, hospice was one of her passions.
You'd mentioned that you're fine tuning maybe the room design. What kinds of things are you trying to do?
Initially, they had swing doors going in and out. One of the things we'll do is convert to the barn type doors. So it just gives more
Room.
available space.
Yeah. There's some sentiment maybe in the community that they might not be as homey as other organizations can make them. Do you have a comment about that?
We presented it to Alberta Health Services, and I've never had a AHS committee not have something to say. The only thing they said was they loved it. They loved the design. There was nothing that they could say about the direction we were going.
That's good. Yep. The other question, so will low income seniors have access to these spaces? Is there?
The way care funding and accommodations work, it's designed so that if you have your pension and your pension doesn't cover the $2,300 a month accommodation fee, then the government will subsidize you to an extent that you have, I think it's $360
Yeah.
of free cash after
Right. So
rent
that's
is paid.
very good. That's similar to the other. Yeah.
So just for clarification, it would be LAP grant eligible for the accommodation fee part, and then the care fees would be covered through the AHS operating agreement.
Yes.
I understand. Yep.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Sorry to interject.
No, that's good. Thank you. I was curious, have you done a presentation to the town of Strathmore, or you're going to?
We've had several meetings with the town of Strathmore.
Oh, sorry, with their council, I mean.
We offered, they didn't accept.
Oh, okay.
There could be potentially just looking at it if it was being developed in the county, some
Oh, yeah.
consideration for not like engaging when there's a potential development coming.
Oh, I understand.
Yeah,
Yes.
for the town of Strathmore,
That
for
makes
their
sense.
council.
Yeah.
I can't speak for them, but I know if it were in the county, that would be something we would need to consider.
Thank you for that. Okay, thank you.
Deputy Reeve Clausen.
Thank you for your presentation. I sense some tension in the room and I honestly don't understand it. But this is obviously the province has done some evaluation and decided to come up with something on the private sector, which is fine. The hospital land, I've been curious about that land for as long as I've been on council and been told it's never been available. So hats off to you for pursuing it and getting some path forward. I do understand that Strathmore, why they wouldn't want to do it, because it is development in their community. So it is standard practice to not have presentations come. This all looks good to me. I just really hope you get a lot of support here. There's really you're not asking anything of us, so it's our tax dollars. To me, there's only one taxpayer within all of Canada, and all our taxes go different ways. So we all contribute in provincial tax, and this is our tax dollars coming back to us versus municipal support directly. So, and I also just think back to some community meetings I went to when there was a need and people were expressing themselves to us about what they wanted to see. And I heard a lot of stories about people's care levels and needs, and I honestly didn't know how it worked. So I've been learning a lot here. And what I hear here with this kind of proposal, this will fit those people's needs far better than basic care. It gives different levels of care. So if your spouse has a higher level of care than you have, you won't be in different facilities, you'll be in one. So that's just my take from what it is. And thank you again.
In some of our other facilities, a spouse will stay with the person who requires care, and we'll charge them for meals and such. But there's that potential as well.
Councillor Eichert.
So I'm just thank you very much for the presentation. As Councillor Clausen has said, that when they had the presentation meetings around the county, the overwhelming sentiment was the people were going, it was like they all had anecdotal stories about their parents being separated because of the level of care and that. So I'm just trying to clarify something here. A lodge is SL2, correct?
Correct.
So, and you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, but I've been told that, in fact, when I was on the lodge board, that up to 30% of the people needed more care. So that would be going to an SL3, which would be what your facility?
No, our
covers?
facility is SL4, SL4D, and long-term care. SL3, they're kind of unicorns. They're in facilities that don't have the same level of professional staffing, and they're at that level for a month, maybe 2 months, and then their care needs have radically changed.
So, excuse me, can I call you Doug? And
Yeah,
the reason
absolutely.
The reason I want to call you Doug is because I have a purebred standard poodle at home, and his name is Mr. Murphy, and it just sort of throws my mind here. Sorry about that. So who makes the decision then on, does a physician make the decision that, like, if I'm old enough to be in the lodge, I know like everybody's going to say, no, he's way younger looking than that. But if I was in the lodge and I needed more care than the lodge can provide, because the lodge provides home care and meals, that's what they do. If I need more care, who makes that decision for me?
Home care case assessment with Alberta Health Services. They're the gatekeeper into the we'll call it residential care stream. So when my wife needed to go into facility care, it was home care who assessed her and come up with a care plan, and then you go into the 2-year wait. And
But could a person be bumped from like what this is SL3, this unicorn
Yeah.
thing here? Like, is there, like, can you skip that?
yes,
Skip that
you can skip right from home care to long-term care,
Okay.
or to SL4, SL4D.
I think just given the facilities in Alberta, it's quite common to
Correct.
go from being functionally independent or in a lodge where you need to be functionally independent, or at home with home care into an SL4, or if you have memory care needs, SL4D.
Yeah.
Or as Doug said, I was never thinking of your dog, into long-term care. That's quite common, especially given the wait list. Sometimes progression of care requirements occurs even during that waiting period. And so placement can go into
Yeah.
higher levels of care. I think Councillor Priest has a comment as well.
Just on that, I think I hear where you're going. I don't know that people will necessarily leave the lodge until, like, SL3 will stay in the lodge because there's nowhere else for SL3 to go. It's not until they get to SL4 that I think that they would then move up to a new facility.
Okay.
Yeah. And then it becomes a matter of availability.
So this is sort of a, because I'm in construction, I just sort of so you were notified in September 22 of 2022 that you were awarded this deal.
Yeah.
And October 20 of 2023, you had the commitment signed.
Yes.
So in that period of time, so you, at that point in time, I would assume that, now stop me if I'm wrong here, I would assume that as soon as you're awarded the contract, you start gearing things up, right? You're going to start figuring out what you're going to start hiring architects, you're going to start hiring that. So what is the guarantee? What guarantee does AHS give you that you're not going to get bumped? You go all the way to October and they just kick you down the road?
That's why we're very careful about what we spend up until we have that commitment letter. And without the commitment letter, we can't get mortgage financing. We're spending our own money, and the architect, we have probably $100,000 in architectural fees, and now doing the subdivision and geotech and environmentals and things like that, will start spending money fairly quickly.
Just on a follow-up then, on the financial end of things, though, are you confident when in September of 2022, are you confident enough that you start going out to getting?
I'm very cautious.
Okay, so you don't worry about, you just sort of sit down there and.
We kind of keep advancing it without having to spend the huge dollars until we've got the commitment letter, and then it's game on.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Laprise.
So I'm just curious, you're well aware that we have a management body that's been looking at developing a new lodge to supplement the lodge space we already have. And so you have obviously been communicating with the Minister of Health for the HS part of things. We're just kind of stymied, I guess, by how, like, the Minister of Seniors and Community Housing, that's not the right term, but must be aware. Like, it's just interesting that they're still holding us in, that they haven't said no yet. But So I'm just curious if you have had any contact with other ministries.
Lodges and what we do are very, very different. And
Agreed, except I think it puts ours at risk if there's already money invested here for this. You disagree?
it's-
Yeah,
money invested here is mine.
yeah. But the AHS, I guess I'm thinking of is,
That's the
Government money,
funding. And
yeah.
unless you're building an SL4 LTC building, they're
the two different things.
very different things.
Okay.
And I think I can clarify some of this for you. And that's in my initial comment, you're in competition with Aged Care Sagewood. You would not be in any way in competition with the Wheatland Housing Management Body because it's a different level of care. And interestingly enough, because my mother was in aged care, where the need is in aged care is the waiting list for long-term care, for example, is well over a year. And the Wheatland Housing Management Body's lodge will not cover that. So you're a completely different setup other than the 6 hospice beds than what the Wheatland Housing Management Body would be. So, I mean, if you can provide a service that aged care can't, that's fine.
In our industry, we don't consider ourselves competitors.
Well, but you are because you're for profit.
But we don't go out and market. Alberta Health assesses the people that are coming, and the people decide whether they want to go to aged care or they want to go
Correct.
to
Well,
somewhere
they can
else.
you have to pick 3 places and
Right.
they'll tell you what's available.
Right.
Councillor Kester.
Yeah, hi Doug.
Hi.
There's been a couple questions to just try and clarify them. It's all your money that's invested. I know I was aware of this expression of interest back in 20 was, and we applied for it too. We just never got the same letter you got, which is fine. The great part of it is that this facility is needed in the area. We have a dearth of beds. They're all full at what we have. So yeah, welcome for that. That's good that somebody's doing that. The only for council should be aware of, not that it matters that much, but you say it's all your own money, you're investing it and you're building it. But you're also looking for a 20-year contract, and your rate of return on that contract is more than going to pay for that building. You're not digging out of your own pocket just to build a building for charity, and you're hoping to get it paid back.
When you're paying 8% interest on a construction loan.
I know, I'm a
You're digging
farmer. I've
pretty
lived
deep.
through 20% interest. I know what interest can do. You're a businessman that you are, you're hoping to get it paid back over, might take you a little longer, but
It's a slow return.
it's a slow return. I can appreciate that, but somebody has to do it. Only question you haven't really addressed, you said 187,500 hours, I believe, of care. But could you break that down into hospice care? Because we are still contemplating a hospice from the Hospice Society.
I can't do it off the top of my head. I have the commitment letters that break down the funding as fine as by position. So the number of RNs, the number of LPNs, the number of healthcare assistants.
Exactly. That would be very interesting to know. Is that's in your contract, or is it in the global contract of the whole facility?
It will be, it will form a part of the master service agreement.
A hospice separate, or
No, it's in the
it'd be
same
part
contract.
of?
Yeah.
So it won't delineate that hospice care would be twice as much care as an SL4D, or?
No, it tells us how many RN hours we're to provide, how many HCA hours we're to provide, how much volunteer, how much their volunteer coordinator, spiritual support. It kind of lays everything out at that level.
At that level, so that's an average for all the residents, or different levels of care take different levels of?
Well, the hospice funding is for the 6 hospice spaces.
So you'll get a mandate or a
Yes.
commitment, and you'll have to fulfill the conditions of that commitment.
Correct.
Okay. But you don't know what it is off the top of your head.
Not off the top of my head.
Okay, would you be willing to share that? Or?
At this point, I'd rather not.
Okay, thank you. And just one thing here. There was a remark made, I think an Airdrie or care communities, 126 beds, almost $51 million. That's pretty close to what ours is coming in at.
That's the value of it. So when we go to mortgage it, that's the value that's put on it. It's not what it costs to build.
Okay.
Any other questions regarding the presentation? I do have a couple questions.
Sure.
Can you just expand on your ownership model a little bit? So I know, particularly given the experience in some provinces over the last 4 or 5 years, there have been concerns identified around private for-profit operators in caring for vulnerable people. So first, if you could just start by expanding on your ownership model. You said you are private, clearly.
Yes.
And is that for the construction and operation of this proposed facility?
We may change operators, but assume that it is a private operator.
Okay. And then can you just speak to, I guess, things that are in place to mitigate risk for vulnerable people, whether it's and this is just something that's been identified as a potential concern with a private operator. And I'm not well-versed in, say, the legislative landscape or the regulatory framework that you work within or within your own management practices.
There are a number of protections in legislation and also in ethics of practice of RNs, LPNs. I have not heard of as many complaints in private industry as I have in publicly owned facilities.
Okay. And then, and this is a longer term consideration, and not necessarily asking for it now, but do you collect any resident or family sort of feedback data that might be able to be shared just for public awareness more than anything?
Yeah, the group that manages our 4 other facilities do weekly or annual resident and family surveys. They do staff surveys and provide us the feedback on that.
Excellent, thank you for that. Any other questions? I'm sure there will be more to come. This is certainly an exciting potential project for our region. I know I have heard, and it's already been referenced, there was some conflation around levels of care and what's available in our community and what is potentially being proposed or planned for our community. And I think what I do hear consistently from ratepayers in Wheatland County is there is this definitive need for those higher levels of care where families just really, it's beyond what caregivers can provide at home. And I know the demands that are going to be coming on our system and the impacts that those are going to have on our seniors and vulnerable people in our community and their caregivers. And so if this can be done successfully, I'm grateful for your commitment to do that. I guess, so we're in a committee, we don't make council decisions, but it may be prudent for us to bring this back to council just to see if there are ways that we could advocate to support this, whether it's in terms of potential roadblocks that may arise through the restructuring, or if there are potential ways that we, and I don't want to get into areas that are inappropriate, recognizing it's a private development, but if there are ways that we can collaborate with our colleagues at the town to potentially facilitate this just for the residents of Wheatland County and the region, just because of the significant demands. I don't want to go outside of our lane in terms of jurisdiction or financial commitments to our ratepayers, but at times municipalities do that in terms of healthcare. There's several models across the province, and it's just due to the demands, and there are extenuating factors too that can, I guess, sort of move into that municipal jurisdiction or scope. So I appreciate you bringing this to us for information. I think it's good to be aware of what is happening and what's on the horizon for our community. So thank you. And I see Councillor Kester has another question or comment.
One question I forgot to ask. When you receive any residents, is there going to be any an extra point given or one taken away if you're a resident or not a resident? Or is it just whoever comes to the door? 'Cause we live right close to a huge market.
Yeah. I think case management out here is done locally, even though it is part of the Calgary region. And it would not be typical to bring somebody from Calgary out here because as soon as there was an open bed in the city, they'd be going back, and it just becomes disruptive to everybody.
So you'd be working out of the home care, out of the hospital there then? Or?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And Alberta Health Services keeps talking to us about increasing the number of long-term care beds, and that is very likely to happen.
Okay.
Any other questions? Thank you for sharing with the committee this morning.
Thank
Perhaps
you.
a motion to accept his information.
I will so move.
Thanks, Councillor Eckert. Any discussion? I'll call the question. Motion is carried. We do have one more agenda item. I'm going to ask the committee just to extend some latitude potentially in terms of when we might break for lunch, just because I don't want us to have time constraints on the next presentation. So we'll move to agenda item 2.14. Good morning and welcome.
I'm Dr. Joni McNeely, and this is our Hospice Society presentation. Here's an overview, and just like any good 4-H presentation, by the time I'm finished, I hope you'll have a good idea about our plans, the what, the so what, the now what. Except like any good 4-H presentation, I'm not going to have it memorized. I'm going to read it because there's lots here and I want to make sure I don't miss anything. With the last 8 years of fundraising events and donations, we have raised over $4.1 million. There has been fantastic support from county residents with events as big as Farming for Hospice and as small as donations from tip jars at cash registers. So it's heartwarming to see such widespread support when we know there are considerable economic demands on individuals and businesses these days. Our community truly cares and has shown through their donations and volunteering that hospice is an important cause for them. Oops, sorry. Since we are so near to our fundraising goal, we will soon be launching our next phase, named Capital Campaign 3.0 for lack of imagination. You can expect to see the launch publicly by year end, and though privately, this has already started with some major players in our community. The FFE furniture, fixtures, equipment portion of the campaign deals with the costing out of specialized lift, a spa tub room, high-tech medication rooms, and IT features. Our team is speccing beautiful millwork and decor, boring conference tables and chairs, and cozy lounge furniture for both our patients and their families, and even costing out something as simple as the kitchen table that your dying father will gather around with his neighbors, have a coffee, maybe a beer, and talk about the latest crop report. We're hoping to have specific sponsorship of the patient rooms, who knows, maybe even an eggy wing on one end and an oil wing on the other. In terms of project management, we're on schedule, having completed the 100% design development stage. To be clear, with considerable input from other hospices in Alberta, our design is about going above and beyond what AHS expects for this kind of care. Instead, it is about creating a home and creating a community within our facility, one that keeps residents as part of the larger community outside. The current AHS model, especially its minimal staffing expectations, has been repeatedly called out by national palliative care experts and the Canadian Cancer Society for what I call beds at the end of the hallway. No other provincial health system, only Alberta Health Services, calls this kind of care hospice. I think we can do better. We will do better, at least as good as what other provinces are getting. And as an aside, you may be wondering what our board's plans are if the anticipated funding for Wheatland Housing Management Body is delayed over and over and over again. Or if perhaps Mr. Murphy is successful with his permitting and rezoning requests in Strathmore. We've all seen the results AHS has provided us lately with ambulance services, emergency care, and family medicine. Our goal is to pursue our business plan, which is to provide community-led, quality-driven care and programming in the true spirit of hospice based out of Kinsman Park. This is just a snippet of the design of the whole Kinsman Park project. The lodge part of the design still needs to be approved by Wheatland Housing Management Body this week. But since we've helped paid for the architectural drawings, I'm going to show you our end of the building. Our design follows small care home design requirement checklists proposed by some forward thinker in government in anticipation of a move towards smaller independent facilities of 14 beds or less. At the bottom of the slide, you'll see 6 patient rooms overlooking Kinsman Lake in amongst the trees. They'll have walkouts to the outdoors and access to the patio areas and be within arm's reach of the playground for your grandkids to burn off some energy. In the middle portion of the slide, you'll notice over half of the square footage is exclusively community-oriented. Spaces for educational programming and outreach services. Rooms for important work, like grief counseling by pastors and therapists. Bright spaces for volunteers to do the last crafty memento with you or your young family. A homey-like kitchen to soft boil an egg. There will be a separate covered entrance, a reception, and a sitting area for your family if you're transported to our hospice by ambulance rather than by car. And at the desk when you arrive, a volunteer to greet you, a familiar face, because you've been attending a day hospice here for a bit now. We hope to have an atmosphere that is open and compassionate for everyone, because we believe that in hospice care, the responsibility is not just to you as the patient, but to your family and to our community as a whole. And I feel this is the most important feature of our hospice, and a reflection that our care is not just an add-on for-profit space at the end of a hallway somewhere. We'll have a fully functional and fully staffed nursing and medical station right here in the hospice, within arm's reach of patient rooms. A frequent complaint we hear from families is that while a patient is actively dying, nursing in other places is so understaffed and overworked or poorly trained in end-of-life care that both the patient and the family are pretty much on their own. Not on our watch. Expect quality nursing care. And speaking of nursing, nursing will be the biggest expense in our day-to-day operations, but there'll be no cutting corners to make a profit. There's no ethical equivalency to making money off of dying patients in our community. Nursing will be union wages, full-time employment. As we speak, accountants and experts are working on updating these operating costs, and we'll have a better idea soon of that budget. I need to point out as we discuss this element though, we're not too concerned about not having that operating contract with AHS we saw in the past, because one of the 4 new health pillars, the continuing care organization, will be set up by the springtime. This means AHS is no longer the primary decision maker regarding hospice beds. The new continuing care organization will do so instead. AHS will, like any other operator, just like us, be a contractor to the continuing care organization. Bottom line is the contracting sands are shifting by spring. However, staying positive, I sort of envision these times like walking around with one of those great big trendy Stanley mugs. You know, the coffee mugs our parents took to the job, but are now all the rage with the younger set. That mug is empty. The palliative care room in our hospital was recently shut down. In the future, in our community, I hope for palliative care that there likely will be a little bit of added Shasta coffee, a little bit of Siksika coffee, maybe even a little bit of Chera coffee, but for sure there will be Wheatland and Area Hospice Society coffee, or maybe we're the cream. The important thing to remember is that ultimately there will be significant change with AHS losing a great deal of power. And we all know that the province is very anxious to make this new 4-pillar plan work. There's a lot of pressure to meet Albertans' expectations, and professionals are saying that the government of Alberta is trying very, very hard to meet its promises, and we should too. So anything is game, and there's even more courtesy granted to entertain new partners with unique models. So how can we get more of our coffee into that mug, meet the local needs, yet contribute to the sustainably provincial system? These are some of the opportunities that we'll be pitching to Alberta Health in the near future. The rural in-home funding is an easy ask. Our hospice is a patient's new home, and funds could be used to employ hospice staff. It's also been pitched by the RMA. Self-managed care is similar. Since opening, Red Deer Hospice has used LPN staffing to carry the nursing load, with outside palliative home care RN supervising the care plans. Hospices in Calgary get 50% of their total funding costs through AHS, And not surprising, like many operators are wondering what their contracts will look like after the reorg announcement in May. An example of innovation before its time is the newest funding arrangement done by Edmonton's Pilgrim's Hospice for the past 2 years. And the more I think about it, the more it seems the way to go for us too. Like some future-telling savant, they've obtained funding directly through Alberta Health, totally bypassing AHS completely. And they have much more local control. They are able to screen and accept patients independently, like any other community service. This model gives me a whole lot of reassurance because it can prevent our hospice, which our fundraisers paid for, from being filled by non-residents from outside the area. This helps us guarantee this is a community-first facility, unlike models across the province. In Alberta right now, there's budget challenges caused by a rapidly growing population and declining oil prices. That and concerns about affordability will take up a great deal of political attention and energy for Cabinet in 2024. But taking the decision-making power away from AHS and injecting accountability into the system is top of mind and has created an opportune time for us to now address our operations funding directly with Alberta Health. It's a huge embarrassment for Alberta to get called out by palliative care experts and national societies about the low bar set by AHS for facility end-of-life care. Heck, even Saskatchewan has opened up 2 fully functional standalone hospices in the past 2 years. That's a stab at Saskatchewan, by the way. Not only that, our Wheatland community is now much more activated about their end-of-life care needs and understands that more service above what AHS offered facilities in the past is necessary. This is our value proposition. Other hospice societies and experts in the province are watching us. We're rural, we're locally controlled, we're collaborative, and we have multiple partnerships. And most importantly, we are frontline, both staff and volunteers, and can be a good example of the new regionalized decision making. This model, because it is new, may be a bit intimidating to some, or because it involves a bit more legwork, may be a bit worrisome for others. But it checks all the boxes when it comes to the new provincial government direction, not AHS's. I propose we get ahead of the crowd and go for it. And always, always remember why we are doing this. With hospice palliative care, patients do better, families do better, and it is more financially responsible. Care at the end of life deserves as much respect and attention as at the beginning of life. So, what do we need from you now? And from those in the gallery and listening today, how can you be a helper? Show us your support. When you can, talk about our hospice partnership with Wheatland Housing Management Body to your councillors and your MLA. Let them know that they're getting good value here. Rural, responsible. What else? Council, we are asking for 2 formal letters of support to both the Minister of Health and the Minister of Seniors, Community and Social Services, helping those in Edmonton understand what our community needs really are and supporting our community's solutions in the myriad of ways I showed you a few slides back, one of which has been endorsed by the RMA.
Dr. McNeely, I'm just going to have you pause.
I've got 2 paragraphs.
And we'll just follow our procedure. I'm confident we'll get to those, but we have reached the 15-minute period. It's at the committee's wishes to extend.
I'll move we extend Dr. McNeely's presentation.
Thank you, Councillor Larson. Any discussion? Call the question. All in favor?
There you go.
Motion is carried.
Thanks.
Please proceed. My apologies.
So I am very aware, I am very aware that it can be very, very painful as things move at the speed of government. On the other hand, the first of the pillars announcement promise will, at the end of May, will arrive quicker than we think. And in the alternative, I'd like to respectfully state that I'll also be preparing a request for consideration in the Wheatland County 2025 budget planning this fall for future hospice operational funding. If our request to Alberta Health is unsuccessful, we must consider the next possible options to fund this caring and very, very needed community service. Thank you. Any questions?
Thank you, Dr. McNeely. Any questions regarding the presentation? Councillor Laverson.
First, thanks for your presentation. And I can tell you, because I had one parent that needed to get care for terminal cancer. They were in the Calgary Health Region and they were going to place them wherever there was a space for them, which could have been anywhere from Didsbury to Strathmore to Okotoks to Cochrane. That's just how it works. I was fortunately, financially able to take care of my father and let him die in his own home with some dignity. Otherwise, he would have been plunked in somewhere that would have been an hour or more drive for me. So I support what you're trying to do with this type of hospice care, and I would be happy to bring forward at a future meeting a letter of support for you.
Thank you, Councillor Larson.
You touched on the question of what will you do if the housing body does not get funding? Would there be a possibility of building your portion of the hospice on its own, or are there discussions about that?
Two things. Collaborating is always better. There's an ability to share expenses and, more importantly, share a vision of that caring community together. The second thing is that freestanding hospices in Alberta are difficult at the moment because the provincial government is certainly looking for that photo opportunity of rural collaborating groups together. That's.
Any other questions regarding the presentation?
Thank you for your presentation. Just kind of in light of the presentations today, I'll ask the question, probably elephant in the room. Is there a need in the area for 12 hospice beds if everything goes forward? Has anybody looked at that?
So at some point in time, Alberta Health Services had a ratio of beds per 100,000 people. It's important to note that by 2050, which isn't too long from now, 25% of our population of Canadians, 25% of Canadians will be seniors. We'll all be lining up at Shoppers Drug Mart on Seniors Day. So looking forward to the future, yes, there is a need.
Any other questions? Just to expand on that question, is there publicly available data? I think there is, but I haven't seen it recently on ratios in our current demographics and population.
There is, but I haven't looked at it lately. I think the last time it was done in 2021.
Thank you.
It is available on the web on some provincial website. I can't remember what it is.
Yeah. Thank you. Any other questions?
Just sorry, I just thought of something regarding Mr. Clausen's question, is that we have been in talks with Siksika Nation as well, and they are intent on pursuing their own hospice additionally to ours and to what Mr. Murphy is pursuing. So there's likely those beds. And I'm aware that Chara is also proposing to have some hospice spaces.
Councillor Kester.
I've been planning this for a long time, the new lodge and hospice. And before 2020, we had a meeting with John Capel, Alberta Health. He advised us to build it way back then. Just build it and you'll get the contract. But when we first went, the meeting before we met with him, according to Alberta Health, this area here was overserved. And must have made a comment. Knowing me, I did. And the next time we went and seen them, they didn't have any recommendations because they were still redoing the study. And when the study was redone, then the request for proposals come out. We went from no need to one of the 31 communities in need. And we're still in need, and there's still 31 communities. So will we ever have too much hospice space? I highly doubt it. Just think back. Since I've been elected, the lodge hasn't changed. But we got 200 beds of Sagewood that are constantly full, have been added on, and the lodge is still the same, and we still have to outsort. So we get Mr. Murphy's, no reference to the Tom. We get his beds in there, another 100, that's half again as much. They are direly needed in our community. So 6 hospice beds, I would take the 12 or 20 that could be coming online. It gives people a choice, and they're needed.
I would tend to agree. And as well, once again, it's difficult, but it's important that we just don't focus on the word bed. That what we are planning as a hospice involves so much more than just those beds. Like really our floor plan is only 50% of patient rooms. So much more in terms of grief support, which is incredibly needed in our community, and outreach services to support dying patients in their homes for as long as possible. And I've probably said it 1,000 times that 80% of people prefer to die at home, but that 20% is unable to. Right now, I'd say the last stats that I have available from Alberta Health Services is that in 2022, there was 100 palliative patients, and 51% died at home, not 80%, so they're not getting their needs met. 37% died in the hospital, and according to AHS, that is much too high for our area. It's too expensive, and those patients need to die elsewhere. And only 8% in our area of those 100 patients involved in palliative care in 2022, only 8% were able to die in a hospice. Because traveling to Okotoks, or if you're traveling to Okotoks is too far or too burdensome for the family, if you're still trying to be employed doing that, or the weather, or you have an elderly spouse. So it's a huge mess where location of death is occurring. And I think by providing those beds, even though I don't want to say that dirty word, but providing those beds, we can certainly meet the need.
And it's true that Hospice Society is providing support for at-home patients.
Absolutely, with our
I believe
outreach.
that
Yeah.
we reached 100 here a little.
Over 100 now. Yeah.
All volunteer.
All volunteer, all highly qualified. They're trained through Alberta Health Services in Calgary. They have training and updating of their skills, and yeah, wonderful group of people that contribute to that part of the organization.
Any other questions regarding the presentation?
Thank you very much. So as I said, I really appreciate a letter of support, and we'll see you again in the fall when we come back with that request if it's needed. Okay,
Thank you for your presentation. We appreciate it. Motion to accept the presentation as information.
I'll move.
Thank you, Councillor Custer. Any discussion? Call the question. All in favor? Motion is carried. That brings us to the conclusion of our agenda for our Public Presentation Committee. Meeting is adjourned.